I think that what went into being a great speaker in the 1970s is different than the 80s, is different than the 90s, is different than the aughts, is different than the tens. And I think oftentimes people come to the stage with this avatar that they believe they need to be as a speaker, but that avatar is not really authentic to who they are. Most good influential speaking does have a number of important pieces. There is authenticity. There's often a really good analogy that's used to convey a message and make it memorable. There's usually a good contradiction in terms to keep the audience off their feet a little bit. There are usually good visuals, not necessarily PowerPoint per se, but something that is kind of like the spice on top of what's coming out of your mouth to make people remember it. And there typically is some level of simplicity, taking a complex concept and breaking it down so that a 10-year-old can understand it. Because if the 10-year-old can understand it, then everyone from 10 to 100 can probably understand it. So I think that understanding that those different areas are more important often than the actual words that are coming out of your mouth. I think that's something that's very important for people to always realize.
The visuals have been important for so long. We can all think of something like the shape of a Coca-Cola bottle, and that is translated to how people communicate, and we're all learning to adapt that. One
Mhm.
thing that is one thing that I think has evolved, though, like you said, is how speakers have been changing over the decades. And I'm really curious about what you have seen with that, because I very much learned, I think I learned the 80s approach, but I learned it in the early noughties or 2010. Now I think it's completely different. So I'm curious, what have you seen about what has changed over the decades?
Well, I mean, I think you've seen a couple things. I think you've seen people be much more kind of car salesy in the delivery, making sure that every stone isn't no stone is left unturned, to a way that was much more about very direct, many more hand movements, things of that nature. Now it's much more, I think it's much more laid back. It's more about being the authentic person. That's great. Obviously once you were in the 70s, 80s, 90s, a lot of it was having the sign that was on an easel that you're pointing to. Then it kind of went to having the PowerPoints, and now it's about having more live things there, right? Because the PowerPoint has become some level of a speaker's crutch, to get away from actually knowing your material, right? And that's one of the things I kind of like about TEDx speaking in many ways, because you're not supposed to have a lectern in front of you. You're supposed to just speak, just from the heart. If you have any sort of visuals. They're supposed to be, one picture, one number, one letter, one video, not a bunch of bulleted points there. So I think in a world where we have AI, where people can look up information online, typically whatever's coming out of your mouth is nothing new. I used to say that my major job as a college professor was to do two things: was to give people permission and accountability. In most cases, anyone can find anything. If some, all of us should be eating like all salad, should be running 5 miles a day, but we don't do that, or except for some people do, right? But I think that the people who are on the stage now, we're giving people permission to be authentically themselves and live in their truth. And then we have something, whether that's a webinar, a newsletter, a follow up, to give some level of accountability to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. So I think that that movement from having to share information to having to grant permission is a general arc that's now in place, because people can find out almost any bit of information at a second's notice.